It's fascinating, I have to say. We've actually got more out of the day than, to be honest, we were expecting. And I think there are various reasons for that. One of the main ones that certainly we felt is that it's a great opportunity for people who are at the cutting edge in terms of academic requirements, are able to engage and talk to people who are at the front line, if you like, in terms of dealing with consumers. And those consumers might not just be Mr. and Mrs. Smith who go down to the supermarket, but equally, they might be Bill, whatever his name is, who actually, let's say, is buying electronic components or something. So consumers across the board, B2C, B2B, everything really. And I think it's been fascinating to actually look at the presentations. To be honest, again, we come to things like this quite often, and sometimes you find yourself nodding off halfway through. Hasn't happened once today. And I think that's a great credit to the speakers, to the format and to the way it works. These are genuinely interesting issues, but they're also issues that businesses are really having to deal with. They're things that companies are having to face on a day-to-day basis, and this is a great opportunity to get those on the table, to be able to talk openly and freely about them and to share experiences. In terms of social media, I think the fascinating thing again about today is, I think probably two or three things really. The first is that it's obvious that there's a lot of change going on. You don't need me to tell you that. I mean, we're all aware of that. But I think it's rare that something like a paradigm shift, which is one of those awful terms that is used a lot and rarely applies. Actually, I think we are seeing a paradigm shift at the moment, and today really is an example of that. What we're seeing is businesses having to come to terms, not just with, if you like, a new channel or a new opportunity, but a completely different way of having to look at what they do and how they do it. I mean, completely different. It's got huge, massive impact potential for businesses across the board. Companies that thought they were maybe in one business suddenly are finding themselves having to deal with consumers who they never dreamt they would be having to deal with. And it's really online and social media that's driving that. Another thing, the second thing, if you like, that's really come across is how, at the moment, for me, it's a bit like when we went from silent film, if you like, to talkies, or when the film industry first came in, and what they first did was they basically just filmed a play. And when the talkies came in, they simply took a silent film and they added voice to it. And it took time for, if you like, the film industry to recognise that they weren't just adding an extra channel. What they were actually doing was fundamentally changing the medium in which they were working. And that's what's happening with social media. It's fundamentally changing the way that people are dealing with consumers, dealing with each other, dealing with the world literally on a global basis. And I think one of the fascinating things for us that we see is the impact this is having in terms of how people who are very, very used to dealing with traditional types of marketing, from advertising, public relations, promotions, etc., 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 are having to embrace this and completely not just relearn, but look at what they're doing from a completely different perspective. And certainly we find in our work that an enormous amount of what we have to do isn't just educating clients, it's actually helping clients to ask us the questions that they need to ask in order to help them move their business forward. Sounds a bit of a tautology, I know, but it is. I mean, that's what it's like, and it is a fascinating time. And I think what's really good for us is to come along today, and our clients, the way they talk, they think they're the only ones facing these problems. They're not. Everybody from the most, if you like, highly connected FMCG, very high level consumer branded goods company, right down to the electronic component company, they're all facing, they may be different in terms of what they're having to do, but overall the issue is basically the same. And it is having a massive, I mean, truly dramatic impact. Quite often people say, what could this be analogous to? People sometimes say, oh, is it to do with, the introduction of the radio or something? No, we think what's happening at the moment is truly analogous with the printing press. It's that big, and that's what we're seeing today. It's a reflection of that, and people shouldn't be in any doubt of how this is going to change the world, how it is changing the world.